This is a short presentation entitled How Not to Get Sued in 4 Easy Steps. In other words, we are going to talk about teacher liability for incidents that occur on the school premises. It's important to review school law and how it affects individual staff members in the school setting. You may be liable for things you are not aware of and place yourself at risk for monetary damages if you are found by courts to not be vigilant in your supervisory duties for students. In today's litigious society, it is vital we all understand the law and are dedicated to fulfilling our duties in the public school. And we're talking about incidents such as bullying, playground incidents, classroom discipline, fights at recess or the lunchroom, or injuries that could happen on a field trip or even extracurricular activities. The first thing you have to do is understand what your duty is and what liability is. Teachers and coaches are in a unique position to act in loco parentis, or in place of the parent. The legal duties of school staff members are to instruct, supervise, and provide for the safety of all students. We must make sure our school environment is safe and conducive to learning. Parents place these children in our care for many hours a week, and it is our obligation to ensure the safest place possible for them. Courts acknowledge that not every injury can be avoided and that schools cannot guarantee the complete safety of all students, but you are charged with the duty of warning and protecting students from possibly dangerous situations. The standard of care for students does depend somewhat on the age of the student. Younger children require more supervision and warnings because of their maturity level. In any case, school teachers, administrators, and districts can be held liable if found they were negligent in their duty to provide proper supervision or cause the injury by deliberate actions. Number 2. When an injury results as a result of a wrong committed against another person, a tort is committed. When a person actually intends to harm someone and knows injury will result from committing the action, an intentional tort has been committed. Assault and battery are common intentional torts. Typically, cases of disciplining a student would claim an intentional tort was committed. However, courts are generally reluctant to interfere with a teacher's authority to discipline a student unless the discipline was unusually brutal, harsh, excessive, or delivered with anger or malice. Trespassing on personal property is also considered an intentional tort and is usually in the form of confiscating a student's personal property. Teachers do have a right to confiscate disruptive items, but these items need to be returned after a reasonable time period. Number 3. An unintentional tort is committed when an individual does not exercise the proper standard of care and an injury results. Another name for this is negligence. If a student brings claims of negligence against a teacher or school, he or she must prove that the injury could have been foreseen and prevented by exercising proper care. In order for negligence to occur, 4 elements need to be in place to make a valid liability charge by an injured student. Number 1, the teacher must owe a duty of care to the student. Secondly, the teacher must breach that duty. Third, an injury to the student must have occurred. And fourth, there must be a direct connection between the student's injury and the breach of duty. Number 4, another step teachers need to consider to avoid liability charges for injury is the ability to see into the future. The teacher should predict or anticipate whether a situation may be potentially harmful to students and take steps to prevent injuries. If you don't do this, liability claims may result. Even parent waivers or releases do not relieve teachers or schools of liability if they fail to provide appropriate supervision. Special care must be exercised during higher risk activities such as certain field trips, contact sports, or shop class activities. It is the teacher's responsibility to always make sure equipment is functioning properly and facilities are free of dangerous elements. Keep in mind your duty to supervise and protect students. That may extend beyond regular school hours. Some of the court cases to consider when thinking about liability in your own particular situation are listed here. The first one, Guyton versus Rhodes. The Hamilton County Court of Appeals held that a teacher was not liable for injuries sustained in her absence when one student threw a glass milk bottle at another student and it hit him in the eye. The court found that the incident was not foreseeable and the teacher's acts were not the cause of the injury. In Boyer versus Jablonski, the court found in favor of the teacher when one student kicked a chair out from under another student and injured her. Even though students had kicked chairs out from beneath each other before, the court found that the act was not foreseeable by the teacher. In Daly versus Los Angeles School District, a student was killed when he and another student were slap fighting in the school gym during recess. The boys had been fighting for several minutes before one fell over, fractured his skull, and died later that night. The supervising gym teacher was eating lunch at the time. The California Supreme Court stated that the lack of supervision or ineffective supervision constituted a lack of care. In Lucas versus Fresno Unified School District, a 10-year-old student had joined some other students throwing rocks during recess when he was hit in the eye and sustained an injury. The court found that the school had a duty to supervise and protect students on school grounds during recess. In Acosta versus Los Angeles School District, a student was working out in a gym under the supervision of a coach when he missed the bar and was paralyzed. The court stated that in this case, schools have the responsibility to provide reasonable care for students in extracurricular activities. The concern about teacher liability follows ISLLC's Standards 3 and 5. Education leaders must be concerned for the welfare and safety of their students at all times and take the proper measures to ensure their safety. They must also be aware that their decisions or lack of exercising their duty can have legal consequences. In conclusion, if reasonable measures and good judgment are exercised and you follow these 4 easy steps, unexplained accidents will not usually result in liability charges.